Hi everybody, welcome back. It's Wednesday and next to the last day of May. Can you believe it? We'll talk about your June weather forecast in just a few moments. We'll talk about coverage of one of two Magafa County Board of Education meetings we have on tap for the next few days. I also have from the Magafa County High School simply a stunning report about an app created by some students, but the purpose behind it and the reception it has gotten thus far locally and on a much larger stage is all indicative of the hard work and effort that these students put into fighting the opioid epidemic here locally and maybe even nationally. I'll elaborate more in just a few moments. Also, several arrests that took place yesterday and how we're finding out they are now leading to another investigation. I'll shed as much light as I can on that in just a few moments. And lastly, before I leave you, I'll shed as much light as I can on what's coming up in tomorrow's edition of the Sagersville Independent. It's another must-read. We're working to make sure they all are. With that said, we do have the report, as we only have one other story out of Magafa County. That is a fatality. A single vehicle crash that happened in Lawrence County. It happened in Fallsburg earlier this morning around 9:30. There was one vehicle and so far only one person that we know of involved in the crash. No other information is available. There may have been others involved, but we know that one fatality has been confirmed by the Lawrence County coroner. We do not have any indicators as to how the accident happened or the identity of the victim involved as of yet, but we'll let you know should there be an update before I leave you. We're going to jump right into our headlines tonight because we've got several and some good stories coming in just a few moments. One I'm very proud to bring you in just a few minutes right now, some coverage of one of two Magafa County Board of Education meetings. This one goes back to last week. I'm still trying to get caught up because of the pre and post-election coverage, if you will. But nevertheless, in this meeting, a couple of important topics. A new school calendar that has some significant changes, and also several other items on the regular session agenda. First in the meeting, special recognitions of two recent graduates of the adult education program receiving their GEDs, Joshua Danowski and Silas Saylor, at an older age, if you will. Saylor coming back saying that his desire and inspiration was to be able to read his Bible, and received his GED during the meeting. The school system and other businesses contemplating, as are all school systems, trying to save some money on their insurance. They had a presentation from a group and business out of Pikeville. They're waiting to hear quotes from that company as well as their current company in hopes of saving some serious insurance costs for the next school year. And with a simple suggestion of saving some lives, Fire Chief Paul Howard was at the meeting to demonstrate something that actually his son and fellow firefighter Michael Paul Howard had seen used or utilized in I believe it was West Virginia school system. It was as simple as using a piece of old fire hose to prevent doors from being opened in an emergency or other situation.
You take this old fire hose and just slide it up over this opener here. You're going to get flat here, just like this opener. Then open this door. That's as far as he can get.
You can't get in.
And if this opener's more straight out,
If you're going these in here, it won't open that much.
So, you know, he can't get it. And this hose is designed for 600 pounds per square inch. So the only way you're going to get in there is to force it.
So,
And that's all it takes right there is this just that's an old scrap fire hose that I've got. And I can cut as many pieces that you all need for what schools.
it works really good if you've got like hallways that has these openers on them where you want to shove the hallway up. If you've got something active in one part of the school, you don't want it to be able to get to another part. Somebody responsible to have them kind of in the classrooms. And some of our classrooms have those types of openers on them, so we can do them on the classroom doors. But I'm supposed to get Paul a count of how many that we can use, and he'll try to make them for us. But I wanted him to show you all what we talked about. But some of these classroom doors are a little tighter. You can't get.
The front door would be a good example that you got.
Yeah, we tried it this morning. We couldn't open it that much.
And discussed as an easy, low-budget solution, the school is going to get Howard a number of pieces that they will need for X number of doors throughout the school district, and he is going to supply them. In some other matters, Financial Director Kevin Owens discussed grant funding so far to date, down about $103,000. They're still waiting on federal grant numbers to hopefully offset that number. Terry Watson, Director of People Personnel, discussed attendance rates a little bit below where they had hoped to be at the end of the year, currently at 91% for the district. With classes, as he noted, to be out this Friday the 1st. 8th grade graduation is actually tonight. High school graduation is actually this Friday. They discussed some standard end-of-year activities. They also discussed, for the superintendent, that they're in the process of shutting down the old stone building behind the Board of Education. There are 2 offices still therein, one to be moved to the South McGoffin Elementary School, the other going to the Harold Whitaker Middle School, as that building is in need of some repair and will no longer be utilized. The superintendent referred to July the 24th being set aside for an active shooter training session for all school staff. And they also approved next year's school calendar, and there are some changes to the selection process and the calendar itself. The new law says that the school system must form a committee. The McGoffin County School District did of 11 people. They submitted several different school calendars for board approval with some changes. The calendar that was selected by the board has a different date for spring break. No longer the first week in April. Spring break next year will be the second week of April. There will be a few less days for Christmas break. School will start in the second week of August. There is a 3-day fall break built into the calendar, with 85 days of school in the fall and 85 days of school in the spring. Foothills Communications brings you the latest in fast fiber internet for home, business, or gaming. HD digital TV with DVR, pay-per-view, and all the favorite channels you're looking for, plus crystal clear communications. Customize your experience today and become a Platinum customer simply by signing up for FiberNet phone and TV, and save at least $10 off your monthly bill. The world awaits at Foothills Communications and foothills.net. This next report is one of those good ones, one that we so love to do. While the premise for the design of an app and the project is that of the opioid epidemic, the lengths to which this group of students and a teacher went and the progress they have made thus far with the promise of much more is simply astounding. One that I think even has taken them a bit by surprise. The group that you're about to meet created an app that's an avenue, if you will, for students and even some staff and adults alike to share their experiences, to share their battles, to share these battles anonymously that they have fought or are fighting or facing involving substance abuse, a project that is already giving them some national attention. It's a project that actually started after Jaden Hackworth was approached, a junior at the high school, was approached by a group of teachers asking her to put together a team that would take on this project and take it seriously. The goal was to help find a solution on some level to the opioid crisis or epidemic here locally. The first goal they had in doing so was to present the project at the FIRE Summit in Frankfort. FIRE standing for Forging Innovation in Rural Education, an event highlighting the innovative work in 22 outstanding but rural school districts in southeastern Kentucky.
I knew that I had been personally affected and my friends had been personally affected too, so I wanted to have a team that would take it personally and really want to do something to solve this because it's affected everybody in the county.
From there, health sciences teacher Leslie Arnott says that they asked her to be a part of the project, and together the students put together something that was even bigger than what they had ever expected.
The first thing that they did in the fall was the Health Appalachia at the hackathon and got it started, and then we started working with a lady named Rose from UK. She came from Hazard, and we built our app and collected our journal entries and had our assembly with Randall. And we took all that to the Appalachian Research Day in Hazard and then to Frankfort at the Fire Summit in April.
Each of the schools got $1,000 to work on their projects. These students spent $500 creating an app that's available on Google Play and in the Apple App Store. We'll talk more about that later. They spent the rest on an assembly and t-shirts and bracelets for classmates. As for the assembly, they invited Randall Kraft to speak. now a counselor himself. He, as you may have read in the Sagersville Independent weeks ago, is a true success and survival story of recovery. A story he shared that day uncandidly with the student body. A story that left students with a lot to think about.
A lot of awareness. A lot of people have opened their eyes, and, you know, a lot of kids have realized, you know, that it doesn't have to be that bad. You don't have to go down the same road that your family members or your parents are going down. There's always hope. And we've had a couple of students, you know, reach out to Randall and thank him for coming and speaking and giving his story, because their stories are similar and they now have hope, and they're going to try their best to not go down the same road. And I think that speaks volumes. Even if we could save or touch one student or two students out of the entire student body here in the county, that speaks volumes.
And one of the most compelling, one of the most moving parts of this whole project, titled Yours, Mine, and Ours, because that's who the drug problem belongs to, is in this binder. After Kraft's presentation, when he spoke to students and adults as well, had a few days to fill out a 100% anonymous feedback sheet. And they were, really surprisingly and really painfully, I'm sure as well, completely honest and open about their own experiences with pills and opioid abuse.
We had met a couple days before the assembly and decided, you know, hey, you know, people may not use our app. A lot of students don't have cell phones. They don't have internet access. So let's do a hard copy on paper. And so we got the sheets ready for the assembly and made the disclaimer at the bottom. That way it's anonymous. Nobody knows whose it is and all that stuff. So we announced at the assembly that the forms would be ready with boxes located throughout the school if they wanted to drop their story in there without anybody seeing them, anonymously. That way nobody knows that it was you.
Over the course of a couple of days, students and even some staff penned their story onto paper and submitted it. Heart-wrenching stories, telling of their grandmothers being opioid addicts, which one grandmother completely denies, according to a student. A grandmother who had overdosed on several occasions, and the damage it's done to her kidneys and other organs, and to her family. Students spoke of uncles and aunts in and out of jail their entire life, physically and verbally assaulting each other in front of small children and kids. Students spoke of half of their family shooting up on pills, taking meth, about their friends stealing to stay high all the time. Student remembrances on how they were 11 or 12 and their mother would steal from their grandmother to get pills, or how their mother would bribe the child of 11 or 12 into helping them get pills. Moms, dads, family dying before they were born, when they were small children, and how they've been affected their whole lives. And it's just page after page of blunt force truth about the drug problem our kids are battling. Either having to live through their parents' or family's abuse, or abusing themselves, many taught, if you will, by their parents or families.
I didn't know that it was that extent. I just thought that it was localized, but it really happens everywhere. It happens to everybody. Everybody's affected by drug use. Even if you don't
see these kids every single day, and you don't think that they're going through it, but they more than likely really are at home, and you really don't know. You know, at school, you know, they may seem fine, but at home they may be struggling, and their parents are struggling, and, you know, their families are affecting them in a lot of ways.
And it was really eye-opening. I mean, you go through this and you think that you're alone and nobody else goes through that, but I think there's 44 papers in here, and these are the ones that we were allowed to use, and you know that there are others that do this and you're not alone, and it gives you hope to read those.
On one of the back of the stories, someone put, when you're in a dark place, you sometimes tend to think that you've been buried, but perhaps you've been planted. Bloom. And I think that gives a lot of hope from the stories.
As for the app, it is available on Google Play and at the App Store. Yours, Mine, and Ours stories. You can go there, read those stories. You can upload your own story anonymously. And there are links and links of resources and help should you desire to take that next or first step in that direction.
You can slide over like this, and there's different tabs. Our story tab is where you can share your own story anonymously through this link right here at the bottom, and we put a statement on there just to kind of help you, understand that we all have a story. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but we can all come together and help fight it. On our support tab is like our main big thing with the app. On the support tab, we have many different links, and on the links we have descriptions about what the links should help. Like this is the American Addiction Center, and it's got a link telling what it does, how it's how to help you come over your addiction, and you can just click on the name and it'll take you right to the link.
So if you're asking yourself, where does this go from here? Well, it could be going a long way. It could be going across the nation. They're actually going to be up for an innovation grant later in the fall. They hope to get that grant to publish those stories into an actual book. And they've already drawn the attention of some major organizations.
Like the stuff that we're doing right now, Rose, the woman that Leslie said that we was working with, said that they were actually thinking about doing the same thing in Washington, like in sort of like a national level. So like we don't know really what is going to happen from this, what's going to go, like if it's going to go like further, like if we're going to get to go and do anything like big. But she said that we're going to, like, we started something that Washington had been thinking about, and we've already done it.
We got really positive feedback at the Appalachia Research
Yeah.
Day. The CDC approached us and wanted to, what am I trying to say?
Wanted to interview us.
Wanted to interview and work with us and use our app and our journal to take it farther and, raise awareness in some form or fashion.
For now, you can still share your story, and you can still do so 100% anonymously. You can actually send a message to the team to request the paper version. You can download the app for free, YMO Stories, and upload yours from there. And while children cannot always determine their own fate, their own path, which is the duty, which is the responsibility of their parents and family to protect them and to guide them in the right direction, these students before you now realize more than ever that many others may not have that at home. But they want everyone to know that you can choose to change or rewrite your own story.
I hope that we affect the generation that's coming up and show them that this isn't, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that to have fun, you don't have to go out and party, you don't have to be a story in a book.
Come and just try to stay in your seat for some good old-fashioned foot-stomping fun and be guests of Nathan and Chessie Arnott Friday, June the 8th, as they bust out some of Nathan's newest and original tracks and relish in some of the greatest hits in an amazing and acoustic environment. Friday, June the 8th at 7 o'clock in the Gearhart Auditorium on the campus of the Big Sandy Community and Technical College. Tickets are just $10 and available at macarts.com.
Rabbit out the L-O-G, got to make a commotion like a D-O-G, like a D-O-G.
This next report began with a traffic stop that netted 3 arrests, but we're just now learning, and you'll find more on the subject in tomorrow's edition of the Sagersville Independent, that at least one of those arrests has led to another investigation. Now, according to arrest citations, this all started yesterday in Sagersville, specifically on Oakley Road, and it was early yesterday morning, about 7:30, when Officer Neil Adams with the McGoffin County Sheriff's Department was patrolling Oakley Road, and he met a vehicle coming in his direction at a high rate of speed. And when the officer turned and tried to catch up to the vehicle, he believes that the driver, later identified as Jonathan Kobe Owens, was trying to elude him. Now, another officer who was actually in the area, Jonathan Holbrook, was able to make the traffic stop, and both officers proceeded to question the driver and passengers. From what we understand, the license plate on the vehicle had been expired since September of last year. Owens couldn't show any proof of insurance or a valid driver's license as well. And in fact, his driver's license came back suspended once being ran through Post 9. There was also 2 passengers in the car. We'll get to them in just a few seconds. But when he approached the vehicle, he asked the driver for his license. When he didn't have one, he asked him to get out. The officer saw a green bottle cap with water in it. It was sitting out in the open in the middle of the console between the front seats. And the driver was acting very nervous. He was sweating profusely. And he observed what appeared to be a baseball bat between the front passenger seat as well. He asked the driver to get out of the vehicle, and when he did, in the driver's seat, what was under his leg at the time, he found a syringe laying there that the driver had tried to hide under his leg. And then while Owens was standing outside of the vehicle, a black film canister fell from his shorts and onto the ground. And inside was a quantity of methamphetamine, over 4 grams in all, that Owens continued to try to hide immediately after it hit the ground, but the officer had already seen it. So they searched the vehicle thereafter. Another plastic baggie was found. A trace amount of what they believe was meth was on the floorboard. They also found in the trunk a small safe. And that safe is what led to another investigation. So we'll come back to that in just a second. As for the 2 passengers, a female, Jonna DeSanzo of Paintsville, was one. She was charged with criminal possession of a forged instrument after a fake $100 bill was found in her purse. She was also charged with trafficking in methamphetamine for the bag of meth that was in the floorboard, and possession of drug paraphernalia as well. The other passenger, Herbert Blevins III, also facing similar charges of trafficking in the first degree and drug paraphernalia for the same items that were found in the car. The female, DeSanzo, has actually been charged with additional charges because she had actually given officers another name and identity to which they initially booked her on until discovering her real name was actually Jonna DeSanzo. Right now, though, that safe that was found in the back of the vehicle, that's the subject of another investigation. Just a few moments ago, before I started the show, our editor, Heather Oney, was in the other room talking with authorities, and they were outlining details, so she'll have more in the edition tomorrow of the Sagersville Independent. But what I know at this time is that in that safe was several personal items, a credit card, keys, and other personal effects that police believe came out of the home that belonged to a McGoffin County woman who was killed in a car crash several weeks ago. And they went to the home, and what they found there has also led them to continue that investigation. Apparently it was burglarized, vandalized heavily. That's all I know at this hour, but we'll have more in tomorrow's edition of the paper, and then I'll have a follow-up on the program a little later on as well. As for tonight's show, I've still got a lot of ground to cover. That next segment's still rendering, so just let me wrap up the rest of our sponsorships tonight with a few words from a few of those folks, and I'll be right back.